you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sophia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self-defense. Before we start today, please take a moment to rate the podcast. If this is your first episode, welcome. I'm happy you're here. If you listen and you happen to like the episode, you can scroll up. I know on Spotify it took me like maybe 5 seconds to hit the star rating. And I like to rate podcasts wherever I go just to help them get on, and get in front of more people. It really helps us out. This episode is sponsored by Big Tex Ordnance, your soon-to-be favorite retailer. BTO believes in only selling high-quality gear for responsibly armed citizens, as well as providing pre- and post-sale support. BTO values firearms training and supports firearms instructors nationwide. They even pay for their own staff to train with high-level instructors to ensure that when you as a consumer reach out, you are taken care of. Today we have Michaela Rosowski on the episode. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Rosowski. Okay. I know we just talked about it, but now I'm nervous about it. Well, Michaela, I'm so thankful you're here. We had an awesome pre-show chat. We actually went into the topic of off-body carry, and I learned a lot about some things that she has experienced with the line of bags I'm working with to come out with a concealed carry bag. So that was a really fun conversation that just kind of happened. We got to talk about the concealed carry draw, and I love being able to chat about that. So Michaela, thank you for being on. I would love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I am a 25-year-old, and I have a connective tissue disorder and a spinal cord injury. So I am a wheelchair user who does competitions, concealed carry, as you just mentioned. And I'm just really out there striving for more with my training and choosing to always reach for a higher level of training and not settle for a certain amount. And I'm just really enjoying the firearms industry and where that's taken me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've loved watching your journey, and I feel very thankful that we have your perspective today. I was telling Michaela before this episode, I was at the airport yesterday, may have totally missed my flight, but for the sake of sounding competent, I'll say I didn't, and that this just happened. But, right, not at all. No. This girl came and sat next to me. I think she told me she was 20. And we got to talking, and we were talking about what we did. She's a student. I let her know you were coming on the podcast, and her eyes lit up, and she was like, I can't wait to hear about that. She said, because self-defense for people in wheelchairs is so important, and it's not talked about enough. And I could just see it, I could kind of see it in her eyes. So I'm really, really thankful that you took the time to come on today. As Lena says, time is our most valuable asset. So really glad you're here. I'd like to start out. You let me know that you just had your 6 year, I don't know if anniversary is what you're calling it, but you said...
Yeah, I call it wheeliversary because I think it's a funny time. Yeah.
I like it.
It's approaching in a few days, but yes, we're at that 6 year mark. It's crazy. It feels like yesterday, but forever ago at the same time. And I kind of look back and I'm like, whoa. And then I'm like, wow,
Okay. Well, that was going to be my question. How does it feel to reflect on your journey up to this point, and what has surprised you most about yourself on your growth plan?
Mm-hmm. So I have always had the connective tissue disorder. It's genetic, but I didn't have that diagnosis until I was 16. But I was a figure skater growing up. So I was, competitive. I loved the sport and the drive to become a better skater. And that girl is still there. It's just now with guns.
Right.
But I was so, very, very motivated to always persevere through, I had a lot of knee surgeries. My knee was kind of the worst joint for me. So, I would always have to relearn how to walk again after the surgeries and had a lot of trouble there. I also have rheumatoid arthritis. And so 6 years ago, this time frame, I was going in for my fourth surgery because of the damage that I had from that. And I received a spinal block for part of the anesthesia protocol. And that triggered what we didn't know I had at the time, which is something called a tethered spinal cord. And that was a congenital defect. It's where basically your spinal cord should be like a rope that's free floating. And instead mine was like a rope that was taut all the way and stuck to the side. And I always had the symptoms because I actually toe walked as a child when learning how to walk. And so just so much with me that just went missed and under the radar, so to speak. So yeah, I woke up, my legs weren't the same. I had, muscle spasms, muscle atrophy, nerve pain, some other symptoms that align with having a spinal cord injury. And it was just kind of like, oh, this is weird. This isn't typical, but all right, keep trying to get better and walk again, is sort of what I experienced. And, it took a year to finally get the right diagnosis. And that was through this world-renowned neurosurgeon who practices in Rhode Island. And that woman saved my life. In that year, from first ending up in a chair, I had a lot of decline. I was really, really, really sick. I was not well. And my spinal cord was diseased and I was having silent strokes. So I didn't necessarily lose everything I had in at once, like someone who maybe receives theirs from a car accident, so to speak. But mine just like little by little, think of like slowly plucking away little hairs, and then just until there's no more left, or little left is how I'd describe it. And so then in February of 2020, I had surgery to release that. And then COVID hit and the world shut down, as we all remember and experienced. Yeah. And, that was a very difficult surgery to go through, the recovery for me. I was not in the best shape going into it. And so it took a long time there. But I slowly gained some improvements afterwards, like within, I'd say the first 9 months to a year post-surgery is when I noticed some stuff right away. And then there was kind of this waiting period of I'm not noticing anything else, but I'm just in pain all the time still. And then one day I'm putting lotion on. I'm like, wait, my legs, I feel them, just little moments like that. And so, that was 6 and 5 years ago for me. And then I had to adapt to the world. So that's kind of what happened there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your story today on the podcast. I know it's an extremely vulnerable topic. Mm-hmm. I know that it is going to broaden the perspective of so many people. I already know there are several instructors in this industry that I've worked with that have had students that are wheelchair bound, and they've had a lot of difficulty taking the techniques that they've been teaching others and applying it. And so I know your perspective is going to go so far, and I'm excited to learn from you as well, because I know that is bound to happen to me as well.
Right.
So I mean, there have already been a few students that we've, in just the Shoot SIG in collaboration with Rose classes. We had a lady who only had 2 fingers on her right hand. So it changed her grip structure and everything. And I don't know anyone that could speak to that experience. And all that to say, very glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I would love to know at what point did shooting begin to interest you? Had you shot before this?
No.
Or okay, so when did it start?
So it started in October 2022 for me. So it's only been 2 years.
Oh my gosh. And you've already accomplished so much, which we'll get into later, but that is super impressive. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. It's crazy because, when you acquire a permanent disability, there's so many things that you lose and that you can't do anymore. And for me, those things have just become memories. And then you have to look at the world and you have to experience things for the first time again and adapt. Simple things like trying to maneuver in a grocery store, right? Just that's so basic. Or taking a shower. It's not the same, right? And you've done it before, but it's not easy at first. And then you find your new normal. But what I love is I also then was pushed just through my own perspective toward things that maybe I wouldn't have found otherwise. I don't like the everything happens for a reason mindset. I think it's unfortunate that, this is my situation, but I can't change that. And so I'm just determined to never let it get the best of me, and defeat me. And I'm trying to just choose joy and live my life that way. And so I was pondering self-defense as a young woman, and just chatting with my dad. And I got my service dog, Tucker, who was a puppy at the time. And I'm just like, well, I got him for independence, but what I do without my dad to help me if I couldn't defend myself or some type of situation, or I want to be independent and be able to be responsible for my own safety. And so we both applied for our license to carries in our state. I then, took a private lesson and shot a gun for the first time. I was hooked immediately, just like laser beam. I'm like,
ooh,
this is great. And I was scared. I was hesitant. I would say I was reasonably scared. I was excited because it was something I was pursuing.
Sure.
So I wasn't afraid, but I also thought that guns had way more recoil than they do. And I started on a 22. Yeah. So I was expecting
oh yeah, an explosion, a legit one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not what it was at all, obviously, as we both know now. So,
right.
Yeah, we both continue to go to the range. It just became a Friday night dad and daughter tradition. Instead of going to the movies or something else, went to the gun range. And then I started getting involved. I got my first 9mm I'd say the beginning of 2023. Yeah, that's when it was. Mm-hmm. So I took a big step with a SIG M17.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, I love that gun.
Okay.
And it's now my home defense gun. So.
Ooh, very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever shot one, but I've seen them.
Well, we got to get you to try one then.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay.
So then I did that, and I just started training, and I realized that, like I said before, that the competitive nature in me, that figure skater, she's still there. And she came back when I was shooting.
Yeah, she did.
And I realized I had that outlet, and she had to just be dormant because I wasn't physically able to, or wasn't well enough to do some things and kind of find something that gave me that avenue. And then I had it again, and this was awesome. And yeah, that's just kind of how that started. And then I learned about competitions, and I knew there were firearms in the Olympics, but I had no idea that practical shooting competitions existed. So, right. Of course, once I learned one thing, then it was another. And then, I want to try an AR. So then I, started trying rifles, and just this rabbit hole of learning more and wanting to be a sponge when there's so much to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've not just done that. You competed in your first USPSA level 3 match at Area 7. I've not even danced close to that. And then you took second overall and you won multiple categories at the Adapted Defensive Shooting Summit.
I did, yeah.
I'd love to know, what did that feel like?
The Area 7 was, I'll say this, it was intimidating because it was the first time I was ever shooting from, I have an iBot by Mobius Mobility power wheelchair. And that was gifted to me by a nonprofit called the American Mobility Project. So I'm able to walk Tucker on my own in my neighborhood now and do things with him. And I'm also able to do that outdoors in competitions. And we were just having some hiccups and timeline short between receiving that and then Area 7. And so I wasn't able to practice from it. So I was very nervous, and it's a kind of a joke amongst our local crowd that I don't need to improve the shooting. I need to improve the driving.
Okay.
So I'm there in the sand doing a level 3 match, which I'm looking around at all the stages, the complexity. I did send in some videos from that match to you. I'm looking around like this is a lot. Like this is, you're seeing bridges, balance beams, ports, tunnels, all these things which the competitive events department at SIG does a phenomenal job. So we see pretty intricate stages just at the basic monthly matches that they put on level 1 USPSA. But, I was seeing things that required physical things to do, like physical abilities, I should say.
Right.
And here I am in this chair that was new to me, and I hadn't shot from it. So that's where I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I just had to roll with it, though. No pun intended.
I was about to say, damn girl, that was good.
Yeah, right?
No, not intended, though. Got it.
Maybe, I don't know.
But,
it was intended, right?
Yeah. Just like a little bit. Just like, yeah, okay.
A little bit. All right. No, I'm not cheesy at all. Yeah, so I was just figuring out, right? Here, I signed up for this. I want to do it. It was fun. I'm going to learn. Now I was, making donuts in the sand, I'd say about my first 3 stages.
Sure.
Like now you're learning to drive,
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's where my brain was, like, driving it, being safe still. I do holster before I move. That way I don't break the 180.
Oh, nice.
And I'm able to keep the muzzle management and the safety. Then I learned, like, depending on the stage, I was like, okay, I can back up with my, and not break the 180 to my next shooting position.
Okay.
Because I don't shoot while moving. I pick spots and I move between them. So I do all static shooting. And the power chair, I kind of equate it to like riding on a lawnmower. So it's not very smooth, like at least in the outdoor terrain.
Right.
So I haven't tried it, but it would not be fun to try to shoot and acquire my sight picture while driving.
Yeah.
So yeah, that match was a great challenge, just in general, like skill level wise. We had a lot of movers, but also I had the new wheelchair. So a new holster setup, a new wheelchair, like new gear.
That's a lot.
A gun that was only new to me by a few weeks. But yeah, I signed up for it, right? So I was committed to it. It was fun. And so that was a huge learning experience. I met so many wonderful people that were like, what, you're doing this from a wheelchair? And it was just so cool. Many instructors were asking me advice, and they're like, all right, well, now if we have a student in a wheelchair, I know who to call. And I'm like, yeah, anytime. So that was Area 7 for me. The Adaptive Defensive Shooting Summit was my first competition in 2023. And after that, I then just caught the competition bug, and I started doing matches at Sig Sauer Academy. And a couple matches outside of that, but mostly at the academy, and just adapting the best I could amongst able-bodied competitors, because we all love shooting and it's just really fun.
Yes, absolutely.
But, the Adaptive Shooting Summit, it's all people with disabilities. And Adaptive Defense is the nonprofit that puts on that event. And Sig Sauer, as well as many other leading manufacturers in the firearm industry, support that. And so it takes place at Sig Sauer Academy, which is kind of my home turf for training and taking classes and whatnot. And so, I trained for that match, but I also trained just to improve my skill set overall. Like I said, I want to be a sponge. I want to get better. I don't have that, like, all right, I know enough, right? I want to know more, and I want to be better. I tell every instructor, do not go easy on me. Don't give me any mercy. Treat me like everybody else. So I trained for that match, and, I get there, and, you just meet so many people that I had seen from the first year, new faces. Everybody has some type of disability that significantly impacts their, activities of daily living. So they're called. And so just watching people figure out how to shoot a gun for the first time, despite, impaired core function or limb limitations. There has been people that are blind and they have a guide that helps them. Just like watching that and watching other people, it's like, I can't even describe the feeling. It's so, it fills my heart, but it also is such a, like, it's very humbling. Because I'm able to be around people that are like myself, and then see people that are different from myself. But we're all there on the same basis of, we're choosing to, say we're choosing to be there anyways, and figure out a way. Yeah. And persevere through things. Right. So, I that match, I approached it from, we had, no makeup shots for 6 out of 8 stages with IDPA style scoring, but it was not an official IDPA match. So, I knew I had the time plus scoring. And so I knew I didn't want to miss. because that would be bad if I didn't have a makeup shot. I knew
that would be bad.
Right. I knew that wouldn't favor that. So I was also dealing with a rheumatoid arthritis flare at the time. And so I made sure to give myself grace and, you know, like, you don't have to shoot the best you can shoot right now, just shoot and have fun. And that's why I do competitions is not because I'm winning them with the able-bodied people, but it's because I enjoy it and I'm growing with what I can learn and take away from it. And so I reminded myself of that. I'm like, you do this for fun, like take away the pressure of performing well in a match where you can be competitive for once. Like just do what you've been doing. And so I did that. And I genuinely I had no idea of how I had done when the match completed. All I had was just an overwhelming feeling of pride. I was so proud of myself just for, you know, dealing with the medical stuff I was going through, and then just being able to remain focused, making sure to help out some of the newer competitors, and just the great camaraderie amongst everybody, just the balance of all of that while still focusing on my own performance. So no matter what the results said, I was proud, and I knew that I gave that match all I could give, or was willing to give and able to give, you know, knowing certain parameters with the match, you know, from a strategy standpoint. I gave it what I was willing to give it. So I was proud of that. But when they called off second place, I was like, what? Huh? And just, I got tears in my eyes. I went up, I got my award. It was really surreal to have placed well, because, you know, like I said, there's some beginner shooters, but there's people that shot before they had a spinal cord injury, before they, you know, whatever their disability was, they competed before then. You know, veterans, retired law enforcement. I mean, there's a whole mixed bag of backgrounds, experiences, people, so much talent that's at this match. So it felt really good to see my training pay off, but also to see myself sort of take success. I won the optics division and took second place, and then High Lady.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. How incredible. Well, congratulations from that. I don't think I've ever officially said it. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you said something in there. I have, of course, I say that as if I have this for every episode. Some episodes I truly wing you guys, but I did prepare questions for this. This is not one I did prepare. When it comes to, you said you tell your instructors to treat you no differently, to push you, challenge you. When it comes to maybe someone who deals with a disability in the space, how have you found it helpful to articulate that to instructors? What do you say? Maybe like, when do you say it in the class? Do you email them? Do you talk to them beforehand? I'd love to hear that from you.
Yeah. So like at the SIG Academy, you know, they have a lot of instructors, and so you never really know who's going to instruct what. And so sometimes they might not be an instructor that's had me in class before. So if it's a new instructor, I let them know that, you know, hey, I've taken, I might list off some of the classes I've already taken. I'm here at the Academy often, you know, and sometimes they'll ask me like, hey, if you need anything, you know, let us know, and we'll have that type of conversation. But I'll say, like, treat me like everyone else. Give me no mercy. I can do more physically than it looks. And, you know, here's why I'm taking this class. I like to bring my goals to the table. I think that's important too, because even if, let's say you're going into a handgun 101 and you have no clue what to expect, you know, why are you taking it? Do you want to learn you want to maybe compete? Would you like to learn for self-defense? Do you aspire to conceal carry? I think all of that is helpful. Just to let the instructor know a little bit, so that they can maybe tailor or just know your personality a little bit more. Because obviously you're there to shoot a gun, but there's a little bit of why to it from my experience.
Absolutely. And generally, have you found that the instructors give positive reinforcement to that? Do they say thank you and seem thankful?
Yep. Yeah, and the ones that have had me before are like, yeah, you're not getting it easy at all.
I like it.
And I'm
good.
And, yeah, I recently, just this past weekend took the Hands to Guns class with Max Michel and Steve Tirani, and amazing course. If you have the chance to take it, or anyone listening, I literally learned so much from that. I'm still processing all of the information.
Yeah, because you said it was this past Friday through Sunday, right?
Yes.
And 3-day classes are a beast. If you guys have never done a 3-day class, you are wiped by the end of it. And you pretty much take the next few weeks to really digest that information. I'd love to know, what was the purpose of the course for those who don't know?
So we learned, we did end up learning competition aspects from Max, who just is incredible.
Max.
Because he taught a lot of fundamentals, and the fundamentals roll into the competition and the great shooters. It's really all goes back to the fundamentals, and he kept kind of reiterating that to the class. And then Steve's portion was teaching edged weapons, blunt weapons, how to defend against them, and buy time to get yourself to the gun. So that was very educational for me. I had never received that type of training. And, currently my only means to self-defense is that gun. So learning how to buy myself time in order to get to that. I've taken numerous defensive classes, but never in this manner. So this was a class that I left having so much just competition knowledge and just more confidence in my shooting in general. From what I learned from Max. And then everything I learned from Steve was brand new to me. And it's given me confidence to know that all right, so I'm not in an ideal situation being a disabled young woman to defend against anything. If I ever were to become a victim of something or be in a bad situation, I hope it never comes. Right. I think we all do. But, having learned a lot of that information, it now has me a little bit, I don't know the word, I don't know. I feel a little bit at peace knowing I learned that stuff. And I'm going to continue to process it and train it and work on the technique and maybe have my dad be my dummy a little bit.
Of course. Yes. Dads are great for that.
Right. Yeah. And there's also some local people I know who took the class too that are in the competition crowd. So I think it will be great, when we see them again, to kind of have those conversations and continue the education, because you learn so much from your classmates and their backgrounds. If you pay attention to that, just the camaraderie that develops in classes is one of my favorite thing about doing them. So
I'm with you.
I really plan to continue, like I said, processing that stuff, looking into what I might get to carry other than a gun. And there's just so many elements to self-defense, which is something that you know so much about. So this is a perfect timing and a wonderful person to have a conversation with. So thank you again.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely, girl. And I have so much to learn myself. I always feel behind. And it's one of those things, there's nothing quite like getting your shit rocked. Sometimes you just sometimes in these classes, you realize how much you don't know, and you're oh no, right? But thank God, but oh no, you're I have a ways to go. So that's really cool.
You learn that you're feisty.
Yeah.
And they'll be stepping, and then I'm like, oh my God, I just sent that guy into the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Max is just sitting there laughing, clapping, and I'm like, do you need popcorn?
Right, absolutely.
He didn't know, he had no popcorn. It would have been
no popcorn.
So much better for him if he did. Yeah,
of course.
And just looking at, I'm like, I didn't know I could do it, because the guy's like, drive me towards your hip a little more, and I'm like, I don't want to hurt you. He's like, you won't. You're fine. I'm like, right. Oh. Then I'm like, oh. I'm like, wait, I had the strength to do that?
Yeah.
Little old me? What?
That's wonderful. Yes.
Or I was able to hook and get the baseball bat and actually lock him. And I was like, am I actually locking you, or are you just playing the part? Right. It was kind of funny for a moment. I'm like, am I doing it, or are you just letting me? And
absolutely.
It was, I didn't know I had that in me too. So every time I push my training, I learn something more about my physical abilities that I do still have, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also just realized something strange. You and I sound kind of similar. I just realized our voices are our voices super similar. Did you just think, do you hear it?
I kind of do. Yeah.
I'm hearing it now.
I know.
Hang on.
Our pre-show chat, it was a little bit, we're like, oh, our personalities are alike.
Yeah. And not like, we also look alike. I'm also 26. So we're like super similar in age.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. We'll say the tree, the tree is green.
The tree is green.
The tree is green.
The tree is
For
green.
those listening, was that wild? Did we sound the same? Am I insane? Sometimes I listen to
comment.
Right? Yeah, maybe that'll be a fun little part of this. Sorry, that just hit me. Total ADD moment. I was telling someone the other day during episodes, I have to be like, focus. In my head, I'm saying like, don't you dare think about your to-do list. Like, don't you dare like, and it's not even because I'm not engaged. It's because I just attention issues and, Anyway, you totally just experienced one of those live. So anyway, sorry about that.
Conversations are so great that it like prompts that part in your brain.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that thing.
I thought of something new. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Or I want to do that too. You know, and it's not always appropriate to like write that down,
Yeah. Or just like interject. But I've learned that this is kind of my podcast. Like I'm an unsupervised adult, so I can like jump in if I want to.
You can do whatever you want here.
Dude, right? Isn't it scary?
It's a safe
terrifying.
Space.
Yeah. I had that realization yesterday. I was driving home from the airport and I was like, I should go to my local health food store and grab like their super healthy meals to go and then grab like some protein bars for the trip to Washington. But no, I had this moment where I was like, no one is telling me where to go right now. And I went and got a quesadilla that was like baked in cheese and had like the most cheese I've ever had. And I chose that. And now I have no protein bar. So anyway, all that to say, I had this thought yesterday. It's really funny that we're talking about it now.
That's adulting. You can do what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. Back to you. Anyway, thank you for sharing that perspective. And yeah, I think there's a fine line between falsely empowering a woman or anyone,
right?
Giving them techniques and saying like, wow, you are a beast, you queen, go out and destroy, right? Seek and destroy. There's a difference between, or a line at least, between that and giving someone enough information that makes them want more and want to train more, yet feel empowered because they now have this new information and these new techniques and muscle memory.
Absolutely.
So I like that you have this really nice balance of, I learned this new thing, and while it's still fundamental and maybe not a developed skill, I didn't know it before. I look forward to learning more, and I'm thankful for your experience. Like, you have a very good thought process on that, and that makes me feel really confident in you as a shooter individual, and hopefully someday as a full-on instructor, because that's a really good perspective to already have, and you're so new to this already. So it's really lovely. And this next kind of place I want to pivot to, I'm sure I have a beautifully articulated question, but what I want to just like throw out there and ask is, what have been the challenges of competition shooting? You talked about your what is it called? The iBot chair. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. The iBot chair. You've talked about that a little bit. When it comes to the draw position, the holster you utilize, and maybe even the shooting technique as well. Earlier, you were telling me about having to be cognizant of the distance from the target to your shot position because you're shooting at more of an upward angle. I had not even thought about that. So what are some things that you've experienced that you would have to go on to teach someone in a similar position to you?
Yeah. So, what I was mentioning is like the headshot. So like we are shorter to the ground. So we have to be careful, like in an indoor range or even outdoor like that. It's going to continue to rise more.
Right.
Because it came from the ground. So to speak.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Not the ground, but I don't know. I'm like, 4 feet off the ground in this? I don't know.
See. Okay. Right.
I'm really 5'7", but, I'm short for the purposes of shooting. And, I've had to learn the tech. So my regular wheelchair, that I propel myself is referred to as a manual wheelchair. It's custom fitted to my body, all of that. Every little measurement, things, the physics, all of that. If anyone listening is interested in that side of things, dive into it, because it's actually really cool what goes into these chairs. But even how I shoot from, this chair, and then like I was mentioning how I had to learn kind of how to shoot from that iBot chair, I still haven't perfected my technique either, but I had to figure out as it went on throughout that Area 7 match how to drive it, how to position my body, because there's a certain mode called 4-wheel mode, which you use in the terrain for the sand and rocks and grass, things like that. So it kind of tips you back a little bit more. So there's so much that I wasn't used to. And then I keep my holster on the manual chair. It's by CompTac. They have a wheelchair mounted holster. And so that goes right there. And then I am not flagging myself at all. So I'm able to maintain muzzle management for safety. I did a modified version of that with a wheelchair part for the iBot. We were chatting a little bit in the pre-show that, it's not a perfect setup. I would like to improve it if possible. But basically I will holster, and then when I stage plan, I figure out how many different positions I need and what I can see from each. Sometimes I have more than one option. I also cannot reload on the move, because anytime my gun is in my hands, my mobility is taken away. So I will, I also have to plan out my reloads, like either before I move or when I get to a next spot. If I remember correctly, I like to do it before I move. But, the practical shooting competitions, the hit factor, the scoring, all of that is not favorable of slow movement. So no matter how well I shoot, my movement between the targets, that dead time, which in the class this past weekend, Max Michel really was telling people that dead time, like make use of it, like move quick, do a reload, do something. Well, for me, that dead time is getting from point A to point B to then C, D, however many points I have. And so, I've sort of developed ways to wheel and position myself to be able to allow me to then draw and shoot sooner. Instead of just wheeling up. Like I try to have my body, my posture where I like it. I prefer to lean back into my backrest. That's just what works for my body. I do not lean away from it, which when I had that lesson with Lena, she really was helpful in helping me figure out my shooting stance. I do have one, even though it's not a stance, right? And so much of that I didn't know at first, and she really helped me figure that out. And then I've built upon it from there. So my shooting stance is different in the manual chair and in the power chair, because in the power chair, I have, a chest strap as well, a way taller backrest. My position in the chair is different. I have more supports. In this chair, I really make sure to really try to pull down to engage my arms and my upper abs as much as possible.
Okay. My
ability to lean is also impaired. So, sometimes I'll hold on to, you can't see it 'cause my angle, but I'll hold on to, I did give you some videos.
We'll throw in some B-roll. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. So I'll hold on to the hand rim and kind of tuck my elbow on the backrest, and then I'll lean to my side, and I will shoot one-handed depending on the angle. Or sometimes I will slightly go over a fault line. I've never received a foot fault because of it, because I only go over as much as I need to. And I still have a tough lean. I'm not going 5-10 feet out or even that, if only it's a foot.
Yeah. You can lean over a fault line. Am I wrong?
You can. Yeah. Other people. Yeah. I just can't. So, or because of my shoulder and a medical device,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I don't one hand shoot with my right arm brought out that way. So I'll hold on, across my body. I have another video of that. I'll cross my body and I'll go this way.
Okay.
If I need to. It's just a lot of figuring out what works for you. Some of it's technique. I hope I'm answering the question properly, by the way.
Absolutely you are.
Yeah. Some of it's just my technique. There's so much to it. I'm trying to think what else I even do. I'm sure I do more than I realize. Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably just become ordinary to you. Your new normal, like you kind of mentioned before. So it makes sense that you're having to kind of go back and think of each biomechanical change. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm watching other shooters get instructed on, like footwork, body positioning, way to turn their hips, stick your butt out, do all these other things. None of that applies to me. I was still writing down the notes to be able to help my dad out next time we go to the range together. But, a lot of that for me is just what I prefer for my own my own body positioning. And Max was great. He was like, maybe can, try to do that with your elbow and just see, just food for thought. And I'm like, all right, yeah. And that's where I realized, okay, I can kind of change a little bit my arm position, and that helps. Or no, that one doesn't feel right. It's a continuing evolution of trying things and not getting complacent in what works for me, because I might discover something that works better. So I'm always just kind of going back to square one and doing a reflection of where am I at? What else could I try? I'm always trying out different one-handed shooting techniques. And sometimes one day I'll be like, I like this one. The other day I like that one.
Yeah.
And then I just roll with it, whatever happens when I pick it up and do it, because I realize I can't decide. I'm like Goldilocks.
I totally get that. Absolutely. And for how, of course, you've accomplished so much. We've discussed that. And, but my point is, you are still new enough to shooting. And I would argue that I also am. Like, the other day I trained with Lena, in Utah. We did a little tactical games training session with some women in the tactical game space. And, I completely changed my grip. Completely changed it. And that just happens. That happens to any, I think, shooter or maybe even just practitioner of a sport like that.
And it feels weird to make I've never changed my grip, but my technique, I would say I've improved it, but I've never done a different type of grip, but it feels wrong.
Yeah.
But it's it's not wrong to try to make these changes,
Absolutely.
But that's awesome. You were open to making a change like that too. And
I had to change, girly. It had to change. You know what I mean? I got to a point where I was like, Lena, this must change. How must it change? Yeah. Are there any instructors or curriculum out there that specialize in shooters with disabilities, or even particularly shooters who are in a wheelchair currently?
No, not that I've found. It's really just been myself adapting.
Yeah.
I have a mindset. I like to kind of tweak the saying, it's not when there's a will, there's a way, because sometimes there's just not, right?
Yeah.
For me, but when there's a will, there's usually a way. And we talked earlier, I've just always had a very resilient mindset. So I just am always focused on trying to figure out what I can do and what I can improve. And, I've mentored some people that are new to shooting or new to shooting with a disability. And, the fundamentals are all the same. And so I'll reassure those people, what you're doing, it's the same thing, right? Your muzzle management, all the basics. Once you have the basic safety down, and then I'd say from a disability standpoint, you need to know your limits of your disability and your different mobility equipment. So like I talked about my differences in each wheelchair, I can lean way more in the iBot chair because I'm able to push off the armrest to sit myself back up if I were to kind of lose my core balance. I don't have that in this chair the manual chair. So I can't lean too far to the point where I could fall over with a gun. I'm not going to have, as I would call them, oopsie disability moments.
Right.
When there's, something like a firearm involved. And so you need to know your body. You need to learn your body and the limitations of it in relation to what it could be the same thing with a knife. You need to know that and have that safety, but otherwise everything else is the same. Like I said, know your body, know your mobility equipment, the holstering, all of that. It's really easy to flag your legs when you're using an appendix, carry, inside the waistband holster. For me, for concealed carry, there's not a way to eliminate that because I have my legs still.
Right.
They don't work in a way that's functional to me, but they're still part of my body. So I must take care of them and be safe and responsible. But I make sure to be safe when I am, doing inside the waistband work and concealed carry. I'm very cautious about it. I am triple checking. I always make sure I'm 100% there mentally when I'm going to work with the holster, because obviously safety is extremely important. But having the holster on the wheelchair it doesn't eliminate, the safety precautions that someone with a outside the waistband standard competition rig would have. Like, you still need to do the same, look when you're reholstering, have your draw technique, make sure you clear, present it. It's different, but it's so similar in the same way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It makes sense. The same considerations apply. Right. It sounds like. So yeah, absolutely. And since you've kind of brought up concealed carry, what right now is your favorite method of concealment? I know it's like a super basic question, but I'm really curious to know. I think we talked a little bit, but let's hear it. We have,
yeah. So I love the Lena and Vertex fanny packs.
Yeah.
The 2.0 one that just released. I love the rapid access tab. It just gives like a zipper pull that's just so smooth. I find myself resorting to that a lot just because it's easier with my service dog, or it doesn't get in my way when I'm trying to transfer into the car, or, using the restroom. Then I really do prefer like appendix inside the waistband when I can, if I can allow for the concealment. But I'd say how I carry is going to depend on what I'm doing that day. Like, if I'm going to go shopping, I'm not going to carry on body because I'm not going to a fitting room and I want to be safe that way. So I'd rather, use a fanny pack for that type of circumstance, or depending on where I'm going, how long I'll be away from my house, I might just prefer for it to be off body. It gets a little bit tricky with, like I said, I don't have my full core function. So having I have the Rose 9mm 365 XL comp for concealed carry. Having the firearm, there, it gets awkward at times, but I'm conscientious of it and I can feel it. So like I feel, they're against me as well. So, I'm just cautious getting in the car or getting in and out of my chair anyways. But like I mentioned before, knowing my body and knowing my disability and what I'm going to allow myself to do when I have a firearm and when I don't is different. So it's like, all right, I'm carrying right now. Let me be extra careful and not rush getting into the car right now.
I like
hopefully that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned the fanny pack. As far as the draw goes, has that changed the method in which you have to draw or reholster much?
So, like I mentioned before, as soon as I have a gun in my hands, my mobility is taken away. I did figure out how to, and I put this video in the Google Drive for you.
Okay.
I did figure out how to reach across and wheel and leave my gun drawn and just be reaching across in order to adapt to a drill this past weekend. So that was really fun. However, I don't think that would be really realistic in the real world or in a defensive manner. Yeah. Maybe it could be. I don't know. It would be something that I'm thinking of playing around with more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Get someone to role play with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll charge you whatever you need. I got you. You can shoot me with a sim gun.
Right. There we go. I've done a scenario-based training class with the UTM rounds. That was incredible learning. Yeah.
What type, if you don't mind me asking, what type of scenarios did you run?
So
I'm assuming you did scenarios.
We did, yep. It was 6 Hour Academy. We were never the victim, so we were always like the bystander with the option to use force.
Interesting.
I think that might have to do with some of the what they're allowed to do with the curriculum, just with certain parameters. Right, there's so much to take into with firearms instruction and people and making sure everybody's safe and also feels safe in those types of environments and whatnot. Everybody's comfort levels will be different. So yeah, we did some direct, you were a witness to a violent attack that was on somebody else. And then they're talking to you and I just made the decision to back up and leave. Another time the scenario had, the firearm really close to the other person. And I made the decision to shoot because I was like, I'm right here and the firearm's at them. They can't move anywhere. It gave me a lot of situational awareness information that I continue to ponder. And I annoyed my poor dad on the car ride home with the what ifs,
Yeah. Tons of what ifs.
And if this happened, and then if this, and then, you can go on and on. Right. And the same thing with the instruction, like they can give you scenarios, but what happens, we don't know. Right. And it's up to you. It's unpredictable. Some stuff's predictable. Some stuff you can control. And I think that's really important for everybody, but having a disability, think about it. Like if a place is fully accessible with entrances and exits and, to ADA guidelines, there's usually one way in, one way out for us.
Yeah.
There is for my home, for an accessible entrance. And, there might not always be another door to leave. Or if there is, you can't get to it easily like other people might be able to.
Right.
And so, I'm out in public. I have my head on a pivot. I'm the one that's like, hey, Mom, switch seats with me in the restaurant because I want to sit and face the entrance. And it's just, I'm very aware of my surroundings. Tucker, my service dog, is a standard poodle. And he is also, he's aloof. That's part of their breed standard. And he watches my back. I never taught him to. He just, depending on the crowd, he'll flip his heel to be watching behind me. And I can just tell by the way his tail quirks if he sees something he thinks is a little bit suspicious, and then I'm able to react to it if I didn't see it myself. I think even if somebody, and this is kind of a question I wanted to ask you too, is like, I mentioned the more training that I take, the more I realize I am in a really, really vulnerable position in terms of being a victim. And I also could be looked at as an easy target having a disability. But, the more I've taken the training, I either leave training more afraid because I realize just how vulnerable I am, or I leave like, all right, yeah, I'm not in an ideal situation, but I learned some stuff that I can work with, and I learned stuff that I was able to do that I can do and that would work. Right. And that's what I left the hands to guns class feeling. But the gun might not always be there. There's places where you can't carry legally, or it just might not be within reach. I could be in a situation where my guard is let down and I am not armed. I have access to a firearm in my home, but I don't roll around my house or lay on the couch with my fanny pack on me.
Right.
So, that's where there's just so many self-defense things to ponder, and the what ifs can be bad, and they can kind of get in your head in a negative way, or they can be good and make you want to pursue more training. And so I think, there's so many things that I've really learned having a disability, that firearm. So that class was hands to guns. It was just how to buy time to get to your gun. And it was phenomenal. I learned a lot, but people with disabilities, we are an easier target, and we look it. I've had so many people be like, you just don't look like a girl that would shoot. And, you're too nice and sweet to, nobody would know. Right. And I'm like, well, that's the point of concealed carrying, is to not have anybody know. And unfortunately, if we land ourselves in those situations, that person would maybe hopefully decide to back off and stop. But what can people with disabilities try to learn? What do you think they could do other than firearms training? Because they're not always available. I mean, not to put you on the spot, but
please put me on the spot. No, I think this is great. Yeah, I'm just taking time to think, and this is how I am in normal interviews as well. Are you searching for a brand you can trust when it comes to shooting and gun care products? Look no further than Birchwood Casey. Since 1948, serious shooters, avid collectors, and professional gunsmiths have relied on Birchwood Casey. They've been in the game for over 70 years, providing us with products that have stood the test of time. From their legendary True Oil gunstock finish to the dependable Perma Blue, Birchwood Casey's commitment to quality is unmatched. Birchwood Casey has also revolutionized the way we train and improve our shooting skills with their innovative Shoot and See targets. These targets let you see your shots instantly, making it easier than ever to track your progress and become a better marksman. Head over to birchwoodcasey.com today and discover the products that have earned the trust of shooters worldwide. And use code SheShield20 to save 20% on your order and to support the podcast. Again, that's SheShield20, SHESHIELD 20 at checkout. Happy shooting. Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is the same thing I would tell anyone, and that's the fight before the fight. Hypervigilancy in where you choose to spend your time.
Yep.
Who you choose to spend your time around, who you communicate with when it comes to your location, the feelings of safety, you know, to be in a bar fight, you have to be in a bar kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So hypervigilancy and choosing where you choose to put yourself is the first line to anything. I love that you have your...
I like that answer because this wasn't a trick question, but that's what I thought at least was the first answer of, and I think maybe if someone doesn't have any other, you know, self-defense training, I think for just anybody, but let's say specifically disabled people for this point, just having that situational awareness of like, where's the entrance? Where's the exit? How would I leave? If I can't leave, where do I go? You know, it's
who knows? I'm here right now.
Not to be paranoid. Yeah, that too. Right. You know, not to be paranoid, but like, what's the options? Because I think the same way we all think about like, what would I do if there's a fire in my own home? I think to a reasonable extent, it's okay to think about what would I do if something else goes down.
Absolutely, it is.
Inside my home, outside of my home, you know, that's the world, you know.
Yes, I really like my best friend Lisa. She, I know she'll smile when she hears that. She has a really good analogy where she talks about why we carry Band-Aids. We don't carry Band-Aids because we expect to cut ourselves or get cut, but just in case we do, we have the Band-Aid.
That is a very good one. Good one,
I love
Lisa.
it. Yeah,
Shout
it's
out
like,
to Lisa.
right? It's really hard to fight that logic. The same thing goes for any skill or tool you have or develop for this type of situation.
Yeah.
Something that my mind goes to, and I feel weird just kind of spouting this out because I've never been in your situation, but I wonder if there's a tool that you could keep on your equipment that you don't have to bother with on yourself. Something I'm actually a really big fan of. I've worked with them. I've collaborated with them. I don't get paid regularly. I don't have commission with them. Is Invisaware. It's a keychain that alerts whoever you want to alert. So you can go in your phone and program it to alert family and friends, the medical services, and or the police. And the number of clips...
I'm not familiar with that. That sounds so cool.
It's pretty cool. And it works with ADT Security, so a well-established security team or system, excuse me. The number of clicks you click, it determines who gets alerted, and you set that all up. It's customizable. I went through a period where, and I feel pretty good about talking about it right now. I was dealing with a dude that was harassing me from social media, and
I'm sorry.
Happened to appreciate that. I happened to know where I lived, and I had the time had been very loose about posting where I went to the gym and where I went to the range, and dude was delusional, and I got to a point where I was like, ooh, I was thinking about the idea of holding someone at gunpoint if I had to, and or having just shot someone, or just feeling weird and having to pull out my phone and distract myself in that time. In fact, in a class with Craig Douglas, one of the scenarios I ran, these guys were getting attacked. I had already had my gun drawn on a dude. Another guy intervenes and literally tackles the guy. I put my gun up to call 911. Craig was like, "Whoa, why'd you do that?" And
banana phone, but gun.
Yeah. I put my weapon away to call 911 when
I thought you put the gun up. I'm like, what?
Oh no. I was trying to think of what you meant too. I was like, wait, what is a banana gun? God. That's so funny. No, I actually in the moment.
I'm not blonde, obviously.
No, you're not. That was not a blonde moment. I can absolutely see why it sounded like that. That's so funny. That's something I would say. We are a lot alike. I like it. Laugh. We did. It's good. Yeah. Break up the monotony of the deep conversations. Yeah, no, but I was like, yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Like, why did I put my weapon away? You know, like my one thing, kind of the force equalizer here. All that to say, I was like, man, I really need to buy this thing. Also, my sisters don't carry anything. And so I bought them Invisaware for Christmas one year. And
that's awesome.
I need to quiz them and see if they have it on their keychain. But I would say that something like that, where you have a quick alert system, if you're, say that your bag with your phone and your gun in it are away, some other form of alert for people around you.
That's a great point. I never would have thought of that. That's a great, and I'm sorry you went through that, by the way. Nobody should have to deal with that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, like we talked about, the world is unpredictable.
World wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's wild, and
for sure.
Absolutely. And
that's awesome too, because like people will buy life alerts, right? Like that technology,
right,
with their disabilities, but that that doesn't apply to, that only applies to like the you
older generation,
and you need help.
Right.
Well, it can be anybody with a disability.
Of course.
Limitation,
it's
obviously.
Typically marketed towards the geriatric.
Yes, that's who's
population.
In the commercials.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, that's what I meant by that. Yeah, absolutely.
And a similar brand of technology actually didn't work when my grandfather fell down the stairs and broke his neck.
No,
it did not go off in love service. Yeah,
literally one job. It had one job.
It was not Life Alert. I forget what the name of it was, but yeah, so
sorry to hear that.
So we think about like those. We think about like getting hurt, like falling, right? Like I don't know. I'm sure we've all thought about like, oh, like what if I fall down the stairs and get hurt, right?
100%.
And like my phone's upstairs, or like what if I just came down to grab like a water and go back up? Like that's great, because like your mobility is taken away with the disability, obviously, for most people. So that's a really good point.
I'm glad
something
that
to put in the pocket.
You liked it, because I was like, this could be totally stupid. So I'm glad to hear that. As far as there's a really loud truck passing. As far as hand-to-hand combat goes, that's something that's really got me kind of stunted as far as like what would change. As far as the knife, the edge weapon course you reviewed, it sounds like you guys did some catch and release style things, like what you would see in like wrestling, or maybe even some grappling, where someone like stabs at you.
We did like push, like you push them away and then create space to be able to get to your gun. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We did
sense.
A little bit for impact weapons. So like baseball bat scenario, like for if you can't move, like go toward them. It's just such a phenomenal course. I really, really highly recommend it.
Wonderful.
Like I said before, but so we didn't actually do any grappling or any hand to hand. So I still have that to learn. Maybe next time you're in town,
and I'm wondering,
figure that out.
That's something I would have to do some research on, as far as like, and really just put some thought into. So like thinking about what would change in that position. My first martial arts instructor ever worked with a man who was wheelchair bound, and he was teaching Krav to this guy, because he was a Krav instructor. He did Musawan, he did Jiu-Jitsu, and this guy particularly wanted to learn about Krav. And he was like, I feel bad for whoever attacks that man. Because he actually came in after, some people train preventively, some people train, after something traumatic has happened to them. This man had been robbed so many times, and he was like, I'm freaking done. And my instructor is so impressed. I don't speak to him anymore, but at the time he spoke so highly of this man. And I thought it was really cool. And I wish I was 18 or something at the time. So, my head was everywhere else, probably on boys. Let's be honest, probably still on boys, but, it's one of those things, like, I wish I would have paid more attention. And now that we are having this conversation, this thing I freaking love about being a podcast host, like it's brought a deficiency to my life that I'm like, I've got to learn this now. I get to learn this now. So,
or I think as women too, like we learn the, like, never take a beverage from somebody you don't know. The buddy system, like try to watch a girl's backs, don't get in a car with anyone that's been drinking. Like you learn that type of safety stuff, but like the scenario training or the situational awareness training, I should say, that I've learned from like firearms instructors in relation to firearms has been like the most eye-opening thing ever, of like, oh my God, I didn't know that, or I never would have thought of that. And thank God I've never been in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, sounds like both of us are just like revolving doors with learning in that sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing you can train is your voice, I don't know if you've taken any verbal training. The one I always refer to is Craig Douglas's Managing Unknown Contacts. I remember going to that class.
I have not taken any of that type of training.
Oh yeah, girl. Ooh. That was eye-opening because I've been in situations before where I used my voice without any training. And I always joke that like I'm far more likely to protect someone than I am to protect myself sometimes, because if I've been in situations where I've stepped into fights that weren't mine. I've been very lucky.
A girl's girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Very lucky to have been okay from the turnout. But still, like, had I not been okay from the turnout, I would have never regretted stepping in. And boy, did I find my voice then. I probably was too threatening, and I've said this in a few other episodes. This particular incident, this older woman had put a boot on my car, as well as these frat guys, and I know they were frat guys because they had the SIGEP shirts on from, I always say a different fraternity every time because I'm trying not to actually call this fraternity out, but it's the U of A. They were yelling at this woman, and I stepped in and made them, by the end of the night, get back in their car. And while she took their boot off, the car boot off. And I remember I threatened them so much. I was like, I'm going to shove your arm down his throat and shake his hand through his asshole. I was just like really mad.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember I was pulling my hoops out, and I was like, because I had been doing Muay Thai and I felt invincible.
The iconic hoops that you're not wearing.
Hoops. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. These were big hoops. So I was like, I don't want anyone to grab these. So I was taking them out. All of that to say, I know that I proved to myself that I can find my voice if I need to, but taking a class like Craig Douglas's, where we were taught how to actually, like, what to actually say. And instead of saying, like, instead of calling someone an a-hole, being like, you can say back up, a-hole, not you're, sorry. The good example is
sense is one of the first things you're taught, right?
That too. And saying things like back the F up, not back up, mother effer, how to actually use cuss words and how to escalate your own voice for the purpose of de-escalation. That was a really big thing. So I would say,
I feel like a lot of people, and we've all been guilty of it, just have escalated things at times when maybe we could have taken it differently.
Absolutely.
Just even basic disagreements that don't involve any type of altercation. That's a bad one.
Absolutely.
That's a very good point.
And it's okay. I think, really loud truck again. The word de-escalation, I think, sometimes gives the impression that you don't escalate things, when really, if someone were coming up to me in closing distance and they were not following my verbal commands to back up, I would absolutely escalate to a tool of self-defense. Escalate.
Yeah. And that's part of what you learn when you take this training, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I would say, all that to say, I think that would be an important component for someone with a disability.
Like, when I've learned this from multiple different instructors, and I feel it's the same for me. Like, when I go to my gun, it's going to look different from you that's able to run away. Right. Yeah. Like, I can't do that. I can wheel away a little bit, but what's that going to buy me? Right. Like, so, like, again, there's so many hypotheticals, so many what ifs, but I think just like I said before, so much of the shooting fundamentals is the same. So much of what we're talking about right now, it's the same, except it's just very slightly different, So this was very informative and a great conversation to have.
I'm really glad it's been helpful. That's awesome. Yeah. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Are you interested in teaching? Is that something you'd want to share today before we go on to some more formal questions? And to be honest, we've covered already so much. I'm so impressed. We've really filled this pot. So
yeah, we're doing good.
We're doing it. Yeah.
I would like to. Yeah. It's something that I've had other people tell me that I should do. I've received that from a lot of people. I think that's a very nice compliment. And because sometimes we don't see our own potential, and we kind of need other people to kind of shove us in the right direction. And this topic actually came up this past weekend, and I was like, well, what good would I be to other people that are not in a wheelchair? I'll call it mentoring, as I'm not an instructor, but I've done that with people, and helping women, and alongside someone who is an instructor, figure out how to shoot for the first time, and just throwing this out. All right, can you do this? Can you do that? What can't you do? Okay, so here's this option. Try that. Try this. Just kind of, I'm like, hey, sorry to throw so much at you, but like, can you do this? Because I'm thinking down the road, like, okay, so mag changes, like, and you don't want to scare someone new. So it's definitely a fine line of like, what do you throw at them now? And then what do you maybe save for next time? But my brain's like thinking, I'm like writing it down. I'm like, okay, so, I'm like, if we got to get your fundamentals down now, like how you shoot, it would be beneficial to at least. And I don't want what she was doing to have not worked when we had to introduce something else, because then we would have had to start all over again. So that was great, just to, like I mentioned, every disability is unique. No spinal cord injury is the same. I also have the connective tissue disorder, so that really sets me differently from that. But just everybody has to figure out what works for them. And so, I can instruct people on what I do. I can tell them, hey, here, I've tried this. It didn't work for me. Go ahead and try it. If it works for you, that's great. I've had people that I know that are instructors tell me that they've had a woman be like really hesitant and scared in one of their courses, and they shared about me with that person, and then they felt like, okay, I can do it now, and it gave them the pick me up. I've been, I don't know the right way to say this, because I don't mean it in any type of conceited manner, but I've taken so many different courses with my firearms training, and I've had people come up to me at the end of the courses numerous times to tell me that it was just awesome to be alongside me in the class, and how much they learned by watching.
Girl, we know your heart. You know what I mean? You can say anything you want to say. Yeah.
And that it pushed them. It pushed them to want to do better for themselves, because they're looking at me just defying odds. I don't know what to call it. Like just I'm not in a box, right? I'm not in a cookie cutter. I'm just doing stuff that people are like, whoa, like, right. I mentioned I was figuring out how to wheel the chair and leave my firearm in my support hand. And the class saw me, practicing that just on the sidelines a little bit, and thinking like, all right, what is she stirring up? Like we're in for it. We're excited to watch this. And then when I was done, everyone's like clapping, and I'm like, oh God, no, don't clap, don't clap. But people were like, that was the coolest thing, like watching you figure it out and then pulling it off.
That's awesome.
And I got all alphas too. I just threw like too high, and I was doing it one-handed and just like winging it. And so it was so fun. But yeah, if my story helps somebody else, or is able to, help instructors, then help their students better, that's awesome. And so, yeah, we'll see, where stuff takes me. But at first I was kind of like, who else would want my assistance, right? That's not in the chair. And maybe that's being my own worst critic, or that's just not understanding like where I'm able to make an impact. But I'm learning that I'm doing that. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm also seeing this vision where, like, aside from you teaching on your own and developing your own awesome, brand and everything, let me be clear, some type of resource where, for example, I know at the A Girl and a Gun National Conference, there was a woman who's wheelchair bound, and I know an instructor in the industry I have a lot of respect for, very experienced, had some trouble teaching her. And we had a conversation afterwards at dinner, and she was so proud of herself. She was like, I figured it out, but damned was I nervous. And like, I was so nervous I wasn't going to be able to do this for her. And so I wonder if like a consultation service where you're able to like fly places and or drive places and just be like a resource for those instructors that are new to that. Like if I had a class coming up in Northwest Arkansas and I knew I had someone coming like that, you'd be the first person I reach out to.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That means so much.
Absolutely. So like there are things like that out there for you as well. I have no doubt.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I've had so many people message me on my social media to, hey, I'm in a wheelchair. What should I get for a holster?
Yes. Love that.
Or ask about the competitions and, or about them shooting. And sometimes it's an honest, like, I don't think from what you've told me, you could do that. Right. That type of thing, but hey, maybe this is what you could do instead.
Yes.
Because the level 3, the Area 7 match, or me shooting in the iBot or shooting a machine gun, like it looks cool. So people are like, ooh, could I do that too?
Ooh, yeah, me, yeah.
And it's like, you might be able to.
Right.
But actually, for you,
something else.
Something else. We'll find something. We will find something, we'll work together there. So anytime anyone has questions, I would absolutely love to help with that, whether it's, through social media, or another network, and just, speaking with instructors or somebody themselves. I think I've gotten so much just like confidence, from shooting, and it's really changed my life. And I like, it sounds so cliche to say, but it's not. But getting involved in this community and the industry, it's been so beneficial for me. I feel safe in the ability to protect myself if I were to need to. I have fun at the matches and the competitions. All of that is it's awesome. I enjoy learning. Like I said, I'm just a sponge. I'm out there. I'm having fun. I feel like I'm just living my best life, figuring this out. And guns are so much fun to shoot. And so I'm just on this path of just enjoying it. And so, that might not be what every disabled person wants firearms to be.
Right.
Not everybody wants to commit.
Right.
Like I have, I do it really often. But, like I mentioned before, in relation to, tell the firearm instructor what your goals are a little bit. And that's okay if your goals change, but if you just want to, learn how to safely carry and shoot that way, that's totally okay. If you go into it though, like, I want to compete like her, that, tell them that way they might be able to recommend different courses and instructors and different connections and gear, all those things that matter a lot. So I think it's so important. I want other people to get the experience that I have if they desire it.
Right.
Even if it's just the empowerment of the self-defense side, or just fun, right? Like if someone else gets that, it's going to make me so happy. And, I know people able-bodied that have decided to invest more in their training. A friend of mine, we're now taking advanced classes at 6 Hour Academy together.
I love that.
And she decided to invest in more training after just kind of realizing like, oh, like I should do more, you know? And it's so much fun to be able to have a friend to chat about that stuff with, but just to know that like we can push each other and hold each other accountable. And I kind of just gave her that little nudge of like, hey, or even it wasn't necessarily a direct conversation initially. It was just like she realized like, oh, I want to take action myself, you know? So that's just, it's so important.
Absolutely.
I think everybody, just if they desire it, deserves that. And it's also fun to find your niche. Like I was a figure skater before, that was my thing. And like I mentioned, those are now just memories that I look back on. And now I shoot guns. That's what I want to do. I've had people be like, so do you ski? Do you adaptive this, adaptive that? There's so many things. I'm like, I shoot the guns.
Yeah. You shoot the guns. Yeah.
I do want to try some other things. I'm open to them, but like I have full-fledged committed to the gun shooting.
Yeah.
And enjoy that. And that's where I'm having fun. I feel like I have found my soulmate in terms of adaptive sports.
I was just about to say, it's like dating that guy that you realize like you don't want to date anyone else when you start going out with other people. You're like, I keep thinking about that guy.
I don't want to spend my time doing anything else.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Date the hell out of the gun shooting sports.
Aside from time spent with Tucker, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Tucker,
aside absolutely. From the very important priorities, like my dog.
Yeah.
And my family. Just kidding. I totally love the gun more.
Right. No, that's awesome.
The dog, the family, the gun, aside
absolutely.
From the important priorities in life, like once you find something that you truly love, you're so passionate, like you just feel exhilarated doing it. Like everybody should have that. For some people, that's like football, right? Like,
right.
It's just, it's cool.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that perspective. It's inspired me. I know that. So I hope the listeners are, I know they're getting that as well. And I'd like to know, how do you feel like the communities that deal with a similar disability as you are not being represented enough? Where do you think we could see some change going forward in this industry?
Very interesting question. Like I mentioned before, and I don't expect the industry to change because of like a small population. Like I don't know of another woman that competes like I do in these higher level matches, or this kind of, like I said before, like fully, just dedicated to shooting. But I do know of a friend that's helped me out with also has an iBot chair. His name is Jim Kuzak, and he's sponsored by Glock. He's just a phenomenal dude. Some of the best sportsmanship I've ever experienced with him. And, he also competes and he travels and does these area matches. But, his best advice to me when I kind of asked, like, what do I do for Area 7, was just have the conversation with the match directors of like, how do you want me to do this? I just went around the bridge where they removed the balance beam. That was no added challenge for me, right? I wouldn't have been safe to wheel over. Wasn't possible for me to complete the stage without them making that adjustment. So I'd say it's a lot of adapting to the firearms community, because some stuff there's not like enough of us, or it's not at a high priority level, I'd say, to make those changes. And I don't necessarily expect it. That being said, like, if USPSA had some type of scoring for wheelchair users that just didn't make it, so that we were absolutely crushed by the movement part, being the limitation, that would certainly help me a lot. Now, do I think it's possible and still maintain the integrity of the sport? Probably not, right? So those are things I'm thinking about. And like I mentioned, I don't compete to win. I do it because I enjoy it. It gives me something. I have fun. I am able to catch my training errors. And I always show up with the goal. Do I accomplish it always? No, but my goal might change over the course of the match too, which is really great. I think there's room in the concealed carry side of things, to open things up though for people with disabilities as well. It's really awesome to, have received certain bags and PR. The Lena new 2.0 with Vertex I received, and it was awesome that they wanted to send me one, and I love that bag and the first version as well. And I don't really have to adapt to it, but some other equipment I do. And I think there's more women that probably, or more people with disabilities that probably conceal carry than there might be that are in competitions, right? So there's a lot of disabled Americans, but who's out there kind of being the sharks and putting themselves in a place where it's not necessarily meant for them, right? Mm-hmm. Because I have to show up, I have to prove myself, I have to earn respect. and, you know, show like, hey, I deserve to be here too. And decide to put myself out there. Outside of that one adaptive match we talked about earlier, there is not anything for people with disabilities. I definitely think there's room for it in the industry. I think it just depends on what, you know, the leaders in this industry want to focus on. You know, if that's not something that's on the table, like that's okay.
Right.
But yeah, there's certainly room to, I'd say, improve the experience of people who already exist in the firearm industry that have disabilities, and ways to welcome more people in. I just think that maybe there has to be some considerations to it, or maybe the willingness to have those conversations and do things. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's everything from the attitude to the actionable steps itself. So I really appreciate you covering that, truly.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to continue to watch your journey. Speaking of, is there anything on the horizon for 2025? Any goals you have in particular? Is it just to be a student? Is it to start thinking towards instruction? Is it just live life, enjoy, and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of live life and see what happens. I'm signing up for more of the advanced classes at SIG Academy for pistol. I wanted to dive into rifle training more, because I'm kind of reaching the parameters of what I haven't already taken for pistol. It's just a little more awkward and difficult to handle a rifle in a wheelchair, and with like movement considerations.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, the sky's kind of the limit.
I love it.
It's also working with what I have to work with in the moment.
Yeah.
Whether that's, you know, just what's on the table for opportunities, or what I'm able to, you know, commit to or be able to do. But yeah, like I mentioned, I keep saying this over and over, I'm just a sponge wanting more, but I really want to be like, just take in as much learning and knowledge as I can. So I really hope to continue to do that. I will absolutely be holding myself accountable there. I think it would be awesome to get some type of instructor certification. You know, I just kind of have to do it and see what happens there, and trust the people that have, you know, said like, hey, I really think you should. And maybe not doubt myself in that aspect, but
yeah. Hey, self-doubt, it's in all of us. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so easy. I think the raising our competency in turn will help with things like confidence. So you're doing the right thing by learning. And that's something I have to remind myself of all the time. I would look into Rangemaster Tom Givens. I would be really interested to see what you think of that course. And I'm not sure how much longer he'll be teaching, as far as like who's going to take over his things. I don't know that there's even been any talks of retirement. He's just been doing it for so long. It's one of those times, like one of those instructors, I'm like, damn, I need to go learn from him now. I highly recommend that.
I think even if I make like a very, very minimal impact, like if I were to get in, like, I'll absolutely learn like about myself, like, in that way, I think I'll be able to learn more about firearms, like by becoming an instructor, and even just going through the course, even if I don't necessarily help other people.
Right.
So, you know, like I said before, like I'm trying to be able to reach more people in the area, just to be able to connect and shoot and kind of get like a local crowd of people together. But even if my impact's slim, you know, it's one person that it helps, right? Like even if it is only one person.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that too.
I love that. Yeah, that's incredible. That's wonderful. Well, I always ask guest speakers at the end of the episode what they want to leave the listeners with. Is there anything that comes to mind or heart?
Yeah. I just want listeners to know that, and I say this because, you know, there was a conversation I had with someone before, and it made me want to, really emphasize this. Hearing somebody else's journey and their story and, you know, what they deal with in life, never ever leave that and dismiss your own struggles. Life throws so much at us, and everybody gets a little taste of it in a bad sense. Just because, I am in a wheelchair does not invalidate the fact that someone else is dealing with something or what I have been through. And I think people can take my story and learn about themselves, and hopefully it maybe motivates them to seek additional training. That's what I hope others learn. And whatever you're going through, like, you can persevere. That's something that's hard to do at times. But it's always been my mindset from just, like I said before, when I was battling those knee surgeries, but especially, what's been 6 years now in the chair, is just, how can I persevere and find a way in life? And I, at one point, was a lot sicker, a lot more restricted with my mobility. I had zero independence at one point. And so just to be where I'm at now is huge.
Yeah.
And I think that we all can continue to find ways to do that. And I, again, the living life to the fullest, like, I hate to be cliche, but just, like, if there's something that's on your bucket list, if there's something you want to do, like, go and do it, because life changes in the blink of an eye. And that's what I've learned over these past 6 years. I am no longer, in school, undergrad, with aspirations of going to med school. I'm okay with that. That's not what life looks like for me anymore. And what exactly where life will take me, we'll see. But I'm enjoying my life right now, and I'm making sure that I'm getting the most out of what I'm doing right now, and that I am proud of it, and I'm proud of myself. And I hope that everybody is able to find that and do that.
Girl, you're going to make me tear up. That was really sweet. I love that. Seriously, thank you for sharing that. That was I kind of felt silly asking the question what you wanted to leave people with, because you already said so many inspiring things. I was like, surely she can't, you know, but you, thank you for that. That was lovely. Yeah.
And I wish I could go back, to Michaela 6 years ago and be like, hey, this is what they're missing, and I can't. But I look back to her, and even, when I first started competing, like, my mom remarked the other day about how I'm just so much more confident than when I first worked with Lena, which was the beginning of this year, just as a shooter. And she really helped me with that. And I started to be like, okay, I can be here. Like, let me demand that respect. Let me continue to push to be able to be involved in things that I want to be, and push my training, because there is a place for me here if I make one. I don't have to leave just because I'm the only one. As long as I'm safely able to do something and adapt to it, I can. It's just amazing for me to just take in where I'm at now, see what the future holds. And I'm just incredibly proud of everything I have fought through, medically, and just been determined to, and I still fight through a lot of stuff medically that I keep personal. It's complex for me, with my connective tissue disorder, which is called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And spinal cord injuries are rough. It's not easy. I'm sure it doesn't seem easy to anybody listening or watching, hearing my story, but, just to put it as it is, right? Like, it's complicated.
Yeah.
So just continuing to just kind of sit there and just think down memory lane of everything I've done. It's incredible. And like I said to you, just what a great time to be able to share my story.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time and for opening up and sharing. I hope to meet you in person soon. I know I'll be back.
Yes,
I'll be back up there at some point. I've been traveling so much lately.
Absolutely. That'd be phenomenal. We'll be chatting purses and dogs and hair.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. That sounds awesome. Yeah. And, yeah, it's funny you mentioned med school. I went for a semester and I dropped out into this industry. I thought I was going to do that too. So we'll have to talk off camera about that.
We're even
Girl,
more similar.
I'm telling you, besides our voices. Yeah. It's awesome. You have a bit of a northern accent too, I've been hearing. I don't know why I'm jumping back to this. I need to stop. You're like, leave me alone about my voice. I'm just kidding. No, but okay. I feel so honored having you on. I had so many people say, like, you've got to interview her. And I'm like, I know, I need to just DM her. And then one day I think it's always when I'm multitasking and I'm like, no, I'm going to do that right now. And so I wrote you and was like, we got to do this. So thankful. Yeah. I can't wait to listen back to this episode.
I'm really glad you did. Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. Well, let's hang out soon. For those of you listening, yes, for sure. For those of you listening that would like to see the video, I always mean to say this in the beginning. This will be posted on YouTube. Every little highlight you see on social media at SheShieldPod, everywhere from Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Livefire. God bless Lisa posting those everywhere. They will have exclusive, they will have highlights from this episode with B-roll. So if you want to get more out of this and head over to the social media channels and check those out, Lisa does an incredible job at capturing some really powerful moments as well as overlaying some footage of our guest speakers. So you'll see Michaela there when she was talking about the way she maneuvers during stages. Highly recommend you go check those out. I'm biased, of course. If you have a moment to rate the podcast, it's super, super helpful, you guys. I think we dropped to 4.9 stars. Who knows what that was about, but hey, that's just more opportunity for growth. Yeah, let's go hit that 5-star rating. What do you guys think? If not, just don't go there. But if you've made it to this far in the episode, I'd imagine you like it enough. So thank you all for taking the time to listen. If you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will connect you with the local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you. The link to access their website, along with all links from this episode that we've mentioned, all the resources that Michaela's brought up, as well as her socials, will be linked in the show notes, which are the notes below the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Stay safe and stay vigilant. Attention all knife enthusiasts. Today's episode is sponsored by the one and only Cold Steel Knives. For over 3 decades, Cold Steel has been leading the way in the knife industry, dedicated to creating the world's strongest and sharpest blades. They've pioneered countless innovations that have become industry hallmarks of quality and sophistication. From their revolutionary checked Kraton handles to the iconic Tonto point blade systems, Cold Steel's progressive accomplishments have set new standards in the field. Their trademark triad locking mechanism remains unrivaled by any of their competitors, proving its unbeatable performance time and time again. Their impressive lineup goes beyond just knives. They offer swords, tomahawks, machetes, cutlery, and a wide range of tools for everyday carry. Trusted by military, law enforcement, emergency services, self-defense professionals, and martial arts practitioners, Cold Steel is renowned for quality, strength, reliability, and dependability. Where strength, safety, and performance come together for over 3 decades and counting. Use code SheShield20, that's SHESHIELD 20, again, SheShield20 at checkout.